What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're trying something a little bit different, and I don't necessarily mean what we're doing on stream today. I got a new software, so I am going to put the disclosure out there today that there's maybe going to be technical difficulties as I try and kind of learn this new software, but bear with me. Hopefully, it's going to make the streams much better, much more efficient, look a lot better. That's kind of the goal with this thing. So, yeah, new software for me. We'll see what happens with that. But we are here today to obviously draft a fantasy football team over on Underdog Fantasy with the guys and the ladies, if you're the ladies in there, I guess. We're also going to be talking some NFL training camp hype. So the way that I want this to work and the way that I see this going is you guys, if you have any topics of NFL training camp that you want to talk about, maybe news, blurbs, whatever it may be that you want my opinion on, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I'll pull them up on the screen. We can talk about each of these topics. And then if you guys don't have any topics, we'll just go down through Roto World. Roto World has all of these headlines. We'll talk about each and every one of them. I'll give my opinion. But that's kind of the vibes for today's stream. And now I do see we got Dylan in here early. So let's see what we can do here with Dylan's comment. He says, Andrew, few weeks out from a startup. It is a super flex 10 by 10, no premiums. How does 10-man affect QB versus the 12-man league? Well, the way that this is going to affect your draft is you want to get more of those superstar quarterbacks. So think of the guys like Bryce Young, Will Levis. Like those guys obviously are not superstars. They're not going to be as valuable to that roster. Now, having that, you do have the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes. Those guys are huge difference makers in that type of format. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown, you still want to target some guys with the rushing upside, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. That's kind of the vibes that you have in that 10 by 10 with no premiums versus that 12-man league. So in the 12-man, those guys like Bryce Young, Will Levis, those guys, they'll have a little bit more value just because every team needs 2 starting quarterbacks. This is probably not the case. So that is kind of the vibe for that league. And Jake also says, how much confidence do you have in Marvin Harrison Jr.? I have a ton of confidence in Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a guy that I think is a top 10 wide receiver in redraft leagues this year. So he's a guy that I'm drafting confidently. I think he's somebody that I just don't have any types of gripes with his prospect profile with him as a player. He's somebody that I love as a prospect, and I think he's going to hit it off right off the gate starting here in Arizona. But I do see we have the draft filled, so we will go over to the draft board here. You guys can see it on the screen. As this currently sits, we are going to be drafting at the 107. So you guys kind of know how these underdog drafts go by now. That is, we don't know the draft selection until we get that draft started. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move this thing over just so it looks solid. We'll get Jake's comment off the screen here in just a second, but I feel like that looks solid. We got Johan here. He says, hey, Andrew, Crum here. I hope you have some A.D. Mitchell news for me. Oh, dude, we can talk some A.D. Mitchell all you want. That'll be definitely something we can talk about today. So that is the vibe for today's video. Like I said, if you guys have news you want to talk about, there's blurbs that you want to talk about, headlines you want to talk about, put them in the chat. We'll talk about them. But let's focus on this first pick right now because what we have in front of us is this underdog draft. Now, I've been doing a lot of these lately. I'm trying to get up to probably 100 drafts under my belt by the time week 1 comes around. That is the goal here. Now, I'm doing one on stream with you guys every single week, but I'm also trying to do like 4, 5, 6, 7 of them a week by myself. So that's kind of what we're doing. But for this, I am more than happy to draft a guy like Bijan Robinson. He is going to be the selection for us. So we will take Bijan Robinson there. That is going to be our pick. Now, I just had a pop-up. Like I said, new software. We'll see how this goes. Now, not really sure what it's doing. It wants me to keep that in the little sidebar. Whatever. That's fine. We're learning this new program. That's cool. But like I said, we'll take Bijan Robinson. We'll build our team around him, and then I'll pull up the draft board and we can talk some of this news. Now, one of the funniest things I think that has come out is, you know how every year when we have NFL training camp come around, when we have mini camp, when we have all of these times where these guys finally get into the building, you get the best shape of his life statements that happen. These best, he's in the best shape of his life. He's looking the best he's ever looked, yada, yada, yada. Well, today, apparently, A.J. Dillon is in the best shape of his life. Apparently, he looks as good as he's ever looked. And Marshawn Lloyd is actually sitting out, going to miss the first couple of days of training camp. So, not anything that I'm putting too much stock into, not anything that I'm worrying too much about. But obviously, we wouldn't have NFL training camp here on our phones, in our laps, if we weren't getting best shape of his life type of statements. Now, going back to this draft here, you see we kind of got around that turn. I expected these running backs to come off the board. We had Marvin Harrison, who we just talked about, come off the board. And now we're kind of approaching our next pick here. This second round is an interesting round, I think, for the most part, because there's so many guys that you kind of have to just call your shot on. And Anthony, you knew that I wanted Drake London. I've been talking highly about Drake London, but we're not going to end up getting him. So I am going to end up leaning into our next little news piece, and that's going to be with Brandon Ayuk. I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk here. We're going to put him on the squad, but he showed up to 49ers training camp. There was a video today where John Lynch and the guys, the executives, they got him. They told him to go into the building. So apparently there was a conversation had today, but he showed up. That's a good sign. Shows that he wants to be there. Shows that he just wants his money, and it's Brandon Ayuk's money, and he needs it now. That's kind of what he's saying. I think he deserves it. I think he's going to get it. I'm not too worried about any of the trade rumors here with Brandon Ayuk. So obviously still confidently drafting him here in this type of format. Now, Zach has a question for us. He says, hey, Andrew, need some help. Pick two of these guys to pick. Gibbs in round 2, Brees in round 4, and Pacheco in round 8. And it looks like this got cut off just a tiny bit. So let's just, there we go. Laporta in round 8, AR in round 8, Flowers round 8, 10-team PPR, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 3 flex. So because this is a 1 quarterback league, I'm going to have Anthony Richardson get taken out already. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 3 flex. I think for me, what I want to do is I want to go Brees Hall in the 4th. He's the first guy that sticks out. And I don't mind Pacheco in round 8 either. If you went Brees and Pacheco, I'd feel very good about that. And I would leave round 2 where you can draft a wide receiver or something like that, and you can get another QB later. So I think my 2 picks with this would be Isaiah Pacheco and Brees Hall. Now, Walker says, there's nothing anyone could say about A.J. Dillon that would make me interested. And I'm here in the same boat. I don't care about A.J. Dillon at all. In fact, I'm a Marshawn Lloyd guy, so I like Marshawn. Dylan says, thoughts on Jordan Love's contract holdout. That's a good topic to bring up. And I jokingly said on Let's Talk Dynasty, if you guys watch Let's Talk Dynasty, we do that every week. I said it was 32 things to watch in NFL training camp, and we were talking about the Green Bay Packers, and I jokingly said that somebody was going to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL here very shortly. I'm not saying I'm Adam Schefter. I'm not saying I'm Ian Rappaport. But I have good word from some people closer to the Green Bay Packers that do say that Jordan Love could end up being the highest paid quarterback of all time later this week or early next week. But again, I'm not Ian Rappaport. I'm not Adam Schefter. But what are my thoughts on it? I think he's going to get a boatload of money, and I think that's the way it's going to go. Now, we're back up on the clock. We're about to pick here again, but there's a guy that I like, and it's going to be Michael Pittman Jr. We'll take him here. We'll add him to this wide receiver room, and that'll give us Bijan Robinson, Brandon Ayuk, and Michael Pittman Jr. So we'll go back to the draft board. That way we can kind of keep watching it, and we'll keep talking some of this news. So I'll scroll up here on Roto World. We'll talk about it. One thing that I think got a lot of people excited, you'll notice that he's trending on Sleeper right now as we speak. Chiefs running back Deneric Prince, he saw some first-team reps with the practice squad behind Isaiah Pacheco. Is he ahead of Keontae Ingram? Is he ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Is he ahead of the rugby player? Is he ahead of all of these other guys? Amani Bailey? Maybe. Do I care? Probably not. I still believe CEH is the backup to Isaiah Pacheco, and maybe that's me being stubborn. I don't think it is. He profiles as a better pass catcher than most of these guys. I think he can step into that Jerick McKinnon role. But Deneric Prince, supposedly he's taken some snaps, some valuable snaps in camp. I don't think there's too much to it. Now, another piece of news that we got as well was Matthew Stafford. He recently got a new deal or a restructured deal, so he was kind of holding out for a second. Seemed weird. It wasn't really like a holdout, but he definitely wanted to get some extra money. He didn't have any guaranteed money left on his contract, so he wanted to get some more. Sounds like they did give it to him. And I see Jack go back to the Deneric Prince. He says, "You mean Chiefs RB2 Kadarius Toney?" Yeah, he's taking some running back snaps right now, so it's pretty crazy. We'll see what happens there. Let's get ready for this pick, and I'll come back to some of these questions here. Now, we're here at pick 42. Typically, I'm not selecting Tank Dell this highly, but we're getting an ADP value on him right now, so I am going to select Tank Dell here. He does have the same bye week as Michael Pittman Jr., but the offense is going to be great. We know they're going to throw a lot of touchdowns. Tank Dell, he's a deep threat. I still believe that this year, for 2024, strictly only this year, it is going to be in order in the depth chart. Nico Collins is the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, Stephon Diggs, and wide receiver 3, Tank Dell. But obviously, long-term, Tank Dell is the guy that you want to have over Stephon Diggs in this offense. Now, let's see what else we got here in the comments. One thing that we got is... I saw one in here. Let me find it real quick. Dylan. He says, "Do you think J.J. McCarthy is starting week 1? No, I do not believe that J.J. McCarthy is starting week 1. I think Sam Darnold will be the week 1 starter for the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm not mad at it, to be honest. Apparently, if you ask Justin Jefferson today, is it better to just have the comments up here? Maybe it's better to have them up here. If you ask Justin Jefferson today, he said that Sam Darnold was throwing some bombs. So apparently he's throwing some bombs in camp. Everybody's going to look good the first week, the first day of camp. But no, I don't think J.J. McCarthy will start week 1. Now, Jake says, "Speaking on the Chiefs, Hollywood hype is crazy." Look, man, that's one of the things that I wanted to do in this draft today specifically is I saw Hayden Winks tweet something earlier this week. And if you guys don't know who Hayden Winks is, he's part of the Underdog team here for Underdog Fantasy. But what he said was, currently looking at the ADPs, there's not really any Kansas City Chief players being drafted within the top 50-ish picks for the most part. He said it's going to be something crazy at the end of the year to look back on because he thinks that there's going to be some guys that boom. Now, wanted to overreact today. We're talking about overreactions in training camp just for the fun of it. Want to overreact and get some Chiefs on my team. Hollywood Brown was one of the guys I was looking at. Xavier Worthy could be one of the guys that I'm looking at. Rashee Rice, I don't even think Rashee Rice is going to get suspended at this point, so we'll see how that goes. And actually, good segue here, Zach. He says, "How are you feeling about Rashee Rice situation?" I've been saying it all offseason. In fact, we were on a BDGE stream not too long ago where I was talking about Rashee Rice being a great pick in like the 7th or 8th round, and I was getting a little bit grilled as to why I felt that way. I just think that the legal process, again, I don't know much about where they are at in the legal process, but so far we haven't had any word about it. It just feels to me like they're probably going to let it play out for the most part, and he might not even get suspended this year. So I'm confident drafting Rashee Rice right now as it is. And you see, we went Anthony Richardson. I wanted to get the stack, the elite, the Russian quarterback. We pair him with Michael Pittman Jr. Maybe it was a little bit of a quick pick there just because we only had about 10 seconds left on the clock, but still love that pick there to get that stack. Now, we'll scroll this down so you guys can see. We'll keep talking some of this stuff. What else do we got? Anthony says, "What are your thoughts on taking the value over need in your rookie drafts and trade later, or do you focus on your tiers?" Little bit of both, to be honest. I feel like a lot of people will tell you that you should be drafting based off of best player available, and I agree. I agree to an extent. Most of your process should be going best player available. But for example, if I'm drafting the best player available on my board and it's Bo Nix, but my team currently doesn't have a running back and I'm looking between like Jonathan Brooks or Bo Nix, and Bo Nix is higher in my rankings, in that case, just take Jonathan Brooks, man. Like, I understand that you can trade for the need later, and that's probably a process that you can do. But most leagues, I would say, aren't super hyper trade active. So if they are an active league, you got to know your league. If you are active in there, if everybody else is active in there and you can move, then draft the need. But if not everybody is active and not everybody makes a ton of trades, then you might kind of have to start considering need a little bit more in those rookie drafts. Hopefully that answers your question there, Anthony. But we are about to be back up on the board here. We are going to have to be looking at, really, we can look anywhere. I think what I'm going to try and do is, if we can get a specific player, I think I'll do that. I have somebody on my board right now. There's 2 people on my board, actually. And we'll start looking for the next little piece of news to talk about, or I guess the next little hype piece. If you guys have anything, go ahead and throw them in there. I'd love to keep talking about what you guys want to hear about. But we had Kyle Pitts and Kyler Murray come off the board. Anthony, you definitely watch the videos every time because you're drafting the guys that I like. Drake London, Kyler Murray. These are kind of my guys, man. But I wanted Rashee Rice. We talked about the Kansas City Chiefs. Give me Rashee Rice. Give me that wide receiver here in this round at pick 66. So we'll pull back this draft board up and we'll scroll down here and let's figure out what else we got. Walker says, no one can make me draft a Chiefs wide receiver. Feels like the Packers. I hear you, but in a format like this, on what we're playing, a best ball league, you don't have to choose the start sits. So in a league where you don't have to pick start sits, give me as many of those guys on those high volume offenses, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Lions, the Bengals, any of these guys. Sign me up. I don't have to make the start sit decisions, so I will draft as many of them as I possibly can. So let's kind of keep looking here. One thing that I think was minor for Dynasty leagues, OBJ, he's starting on the PUP. I don't think anybody expected that, but at the same time, if you have Malik Washington, if you have Taj Washington, is it Taj Washington? Taj, I can't remember, whatever. But if you have Malik Washington, he's a guy that I drafted a lot of in my rookie drafts this year. He's somebody that I'd be keeping an eye on as training camp goes on. We'll see what happens there. We also have this question here from Jack, and he says, who's going to get the biggest ADP bump from Bears Hard Knocks? Look, it's probably going to be, the reality is it's probably going to be Caleb Williams. But if I had to give you a second guess, probably Keenan Allen, maybe, or Rome. Maybe the rookie hype will take over. That's kind of my thought. Sorry, I'm being indecisive about where I want these comments. Like I said, we're trying to figure out how this works better. Dylan says, what would you give to acquire Addison, 12-team super flex? I just recently saw in one of my leagues, somebody gave up a 26 first-round pick to get Addison. I think that might have been a little bit of an overreaction sell on Jordan Addison. Now, the team was tanking in the first place, but I think Jordan Addison was fine for a tanking roster. With that being said, I'd be willing to give up a 25 first. I'd be willing to give up a 26 first. I'd be willing to give up pretty much any first straight up for Jordan Addison at this point in the next 2 draft classes. And as far as player goes, I don't know. I guess that's a little bit more of a conversation based on who you have on your roster. But I think from draft capital standpoint, I'm okay giving any first in the next 2 years. Just a single first, doesn't matter. I guess if your team is tanking and you're projected to be like a bottom 5 team, then don't do that. Keep your top 5 rookie pick. But anything other than that, I'm willing to do that. Jake's right. He said Taj, so there we go. But we're back up on the clock here. What are we going to do? Man, we still have a value on George Kittle that I have sitting here, and I kind of didn't want to take 2 of the San Francisco 49ers, but we might have to do it. I think I'm going to end up taking the value on George Kittle, and we'll just get the boom week. So we're kind of invested heavy in the Colts and the Niners at this point. Another guy on the board for me probably would have been JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's a player that I believe in, but look, that value on George Kittle, we got him almost 14, 15 spots behind ADP. You got to take that when it falls to you, especially at a position where getting difference makers is going to probably mean a lot in a format like this. Now, let's look back at some of these news pieces. Oh, one thing, I had him on a bunch of my Dynasty leagues, Michael Gallup randomly just decides to retire. I don't know why I had him on a bunch of Dynasty Leagues teams, but I had him on a ton, and so I ended up dropping Michael Gallup everywhere last night for Hunter Renfrow, pretty much everywhere. If you are tapped into the channel, we are going to have a video come out tomorrow where I talk about Hunter Renfrow and why I picked up Hunter Renfrow, and more specifically, like 15 players that are sneaky ads that you could maybe make off of your waiver wire as we get into training camp season, preseason. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Michael Gallup decided to randomly retire. I thought that was a little bit random, especially because he just signed that contract with the Raiders. CeeDee Lamb, he's currently holding out. He's not reporting to training camp. He wants the new money. He's probably going to get paid a lot of money as well. Reportedly, Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are both seen as co-starters, or they're both starting players to the head coach there in Tennessee, Brian Callahan. Apparently they're both starters. We'll see what that means. But it sounds like that's starting to shape up to be a massive committee in Tennessee, and it's not really making me want to invest in any of them. In fact, I kind of shopped around Tajay Spears in one of my Dynasty leagues the other day, trying to see if I could get somebody to bite for like DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris, just something like that, trying to see if I could throw a little piece in there to get the deal done, just because I kind of want to get off of him at this point. It feels too risky for the most part with both of those guys. I think they're going to cannibalize each other, and not really something I want to be a part of, I think, going forward, especially because the team that I have him on, I'm a contender, and I just want to have as many startable stud players as I possibly can, and if I can find somebody who's going to give me more value this year, I'm probably willing to make the deal. Dylan says, do you think Leonard Fournette is worth a pickup? No, I don't. I think he's in the same boat now as the Kareem Hunts, the Dalvin Cooks, the Melvin Gordons. Like, he's kind of in that same great players when they were healthy and they were younger and they were on our teams, but at this point, we're moving on from them. I'd rather have guys like Deneric Prince. We just talked about him earlier. I'd rather have him on my team than I would Leonard Fournette right now. Now, we're about to be back up on the board. I think what we're going to do here, if we're so lucky to do so, is we probably got to get our running back too. So what I want to do is, you have Zamir White, you have Jalen Warren, you have DeAndre Swift. We just talked about Swift. I like DeAndre Swift this year, actually. I'm going to draft him here. We'll put him with Bijan Robinson as our running back too. And maybe if we get a good value on the way back around, we'll take another one. If not, I'm more than happy taking another wide receiver and kind of just building out this room from a best ball standpoint. So looking here at another article or another piece, we had Xavier Worthy. He wasn't practicing because of a hamstring. I think this is the second hamstring injury that he's had now this offseason, so something to monitor there. Again, that's probably contributing a little bit to the Hollywood Brown hype that's going on. Probably the people kind of waking up and realizing that Rashee Rice is still there, and he was very productive for our fantasy football teams last year as well, so that's something that people are monitoring. Deontay Johnson was basically Dave Canales came out. He quoted that Deontay Johnson was going to be featured heavily this season. He was going to be a number one type of wide receiver, which is big news to me because I do think Deontay Johnson has kind of been undervalued this offseason. He's a player that I think is going to see a ton of targets. I had him a little bit higher than most in the community, and it just feels to me that when you look at that room, yes, they have Adam Thielen, who was hyper-targeted last year, but the argument should be that Deontay Johnson is more talented than Adam Thielen is at this point in his career, and if they were feeding Adam Thielen that many targets last year, now you get an upgrade in the offensive play calling into Dave Canales. At least we assume it's going to be an upgrade. The offensive line is a little bit more upgraded. The weapons are a little bit more upgraded, and you get Deontay Johnson. He should be able to return wide receiver 2 numbers probably this year at minimum. I guess at minimum probably wide receiver 3, but I think this guy's a wide receiver 2 if I had to guess. And there is a chance that he gives you some crazy weeks because he's getting 10, 11, 12 type of receptions in games where they're losing and they're just force-feeding him the football. So we'll see what happens. Walker says, Deontay getting those Thielen targets and he's actually good. So, yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point there. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So you guys see we're back up on the board here in just a second. We're back in that tier, though. I wanted Jalen Warren to come back around. I wanted Zamir White to come back around. Neither of those guys did. I was looking at maybe Purdy and just going double QB so we could get the San Fran stack. That didn't happen because Dr. Hawk, he wanted to snipe us. It's all good. We are, and then Zach Moss comes off the board. So now I'm kind of sitting in this tier where I don't love these running backs, but I feel like I have to take one. So if I have to take one of these running backs, I think I'm going to lean Tony Pollard. If I had to guess who was going to be the starting running back here in Tennessee this year, I do think that Tony Pollard will probably get the majority of, or not the majority, he's probably going to get more reps than Tajay Spears, just because when you look at this regime and they went out, they chose to bring Tony Pollard in, and they paid Tony Pollard. So if I have to make that guess, it will be Tony, even though I like Tajay more as a fan. That's just the way that I'm going to go. And I'm not big on Brian Robinson. I know some people are, but I'm not big on him right now. So we'll see what happens. What else do we got here in the chat? What do you guys want to talk about? Anybody want to talk about anything specific? Other than that, I can keep going through this Roto World. I mean, the other thing that we could talk about here is we're still getting this drum beat. People are talking about Jameson Williams. A lot of the people in the Detroit Lions camp, they talk about Jameson Williams, and they keep saying that he's a man on the mission. He looks better than he's looked in years past. He's in store for a big year. Amon-Ra saying it. All these other people are saying it. And we're getting more of it now that they're in training camp as well. So if you're looking for like sneaky dart throw later rounds in your redrafts, maybe he's a guy in your home leagues when you're drafting against your friends, your family, your coworkers, whatever it may be. He might not have as much buzz in like a casual community, but if you're watching, YouTube videos and watching live streams, hour-long live streams of people drafting fantasy teams, you guys know more than the average person. So I think Jameson Williams, he's probably somebody to keep an eye on as well as the offseason continues. Let's see. Ryan says, any Patriots hype going on? We had some highlights that popped up on my Twitter feed today. Apparently there was a pretty nice snag by Jalen Reagor, blast from the past, I guess, from Jalen Reagor, and he caught a big deep ball from Drake May. So that's kind of the hype that I saw. I also saw a credible fantasy analyst say that he thinks that we should be keeping a closer eye on Jalen Polk after what he saw in training camp. So maybe that's something to watch as well. But that's kind of the hype that I've got for the most part. Now we're back on the board here. I am going to end up drafting. We're going to go Romeo Doubs. Where art thou, Romeo? He is going to be the player we select there. Again, investing in good offenses like we talked about earlier, especially because we're not setting these lineups. Now, let's see. What do we got here? Dr. Hawk says, sorry. Hey, it's all good, man. You draft who you want to draft. I'm not the police, but when you snipe good players from me, I will be a little bit upset. But it's all good. Now, let's kind of keep looking at some of these other pieces. I guess one thing that they came out and said is Gus Edwards. Jim Harbaugh says that running back Gus Edwards, he underwent surgery this offseason, which I guess was a surprise to most of us. I didn't know that he had surgery, and there wasn't really any specifics on what he had surgery on. But that's something to keep an eye on, especially if you are part of the Dynasty community that is beating the drum for Kamani Vidal. If you do like Kamani Vidal, if you do like J.K. Dobbins, and he's recovering from some type of surgery, some type of offseason injury, keep an eye on it. Just keep an eye on it. I mean, it could surprise us. It could be nothing, but definitely something to keep an eye on. What else we got? Oh, the Javonte Williams overreaction. We had a ton of people. I feel like my entire Twitter feed over the last 2 days was that Javonte Williams sucks. Javonte Williams is competing with Samaje Perine. He's probably going to get cut. He might not make the roster. They're talking about potential trade destinations that they think that Javonte Williams. It was all BS. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, I think, for the most part, because Sean Payton, he came out, he said Javonte Williams is losing weight. He said he's playing better, and he took first-team reps and first-team snaps in this offense here in the first day of training camp. So, overreaction by the community? Probably. Who do you want to roster in this backfield? Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. Those are the two guys that I want to roster right away. If it's not those two, I don't care about him for redraft. If it's Dynasty, you can maybe dip into the Audrek Estime, but other than that, I don't really care about the rest of these guys. So Javonte Williams, major overreaction by the community, in my opinion. Another one, we kind of knew this was coming. If you guys have been tapped into the channel for a while, we've been talking about it. Nick Chubb was officially placed on the PUP. We knew he wasn't going to be ready to start the season. We knew he was still recovering from that knee injury. Now, I guess there is technically a chance that he can be ready for week 1, but Jerome Ford, he is severely underrated. And you see, as soon as we start talking about him, Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, they come off the board there at the 122 and the 123. It feels like to me that Jerome Ford could go into week 1, maybe go into weeks 1 through 6, potentially, where he's getting the majority of the starting workload here in Cleveland. This is supposed to be an upgraded offense. Ken Dorsey, a new offensive play caller. Jerry Jeudy now in town. Deshaun Watson, healthy. We'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see, but I think Jerome Ford is severely underrated right now, and the Nick Chubb being placed on the PUP just confirmed that bias that I had already had. And I see we got Bindles in here. He said, GM, what up, my guy? Hope everything's well with you. We're back on the clock here, though, and we could really go any of these positions, but I think what I want to do is I'm going to end up taking... I think we'll end up just going... I'm going to go Jared Goff. I just believe in Jared Goff a little bit this year. I think he's a guy that... Hopefully they don't have the same bye week. Do they not? Yeah, they don't. Okay. Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff. We're good at the quarterback position. But I was recently on a show, Airbnb football. They were talking a little bit about dome Jared Goff and how Jared Goff plays better in the domes. And they gave me a stat that I wasn't aware of. Now, obviously, I know the narrative of dome Goff, but they said that he doesn't play in a dome until like late in the year in like 13 of the 15 games I think that he plays or something like that. He's going to play 13 plus games in the dome. Hell, if that's true, give me Jared Goff. I'm more than happy to have Jared Goff on my roster. What else do we got here? Oh, Walker says, speaking of Javonte, 14 team. Let's see, is it just better to keep it like this? Speaking of Javonte, 14 team super flex. I just got Rachaad White and Addison for Javonte, Polk, and 2 seconds. Thoughts? Let's see. Let me digest this for a second. I got Rachaad White and Addison for Javonte, Polk, and 2 seconds. I prefer White to Javonte. Javonte in a second, I would prefer to... Look, man, I like it. I like the Rachaad White and the Addison. In a 14 team, the depth is going to mean a little bit more, but having studs is a whole different ball game, I think, in a 14 team league. So I actually like it. I like the Rachaad White and the Jordan Addison side here. It actually doesn't feel like he gave up that much, to be honest. So we're back on the clock. Now, a guy that I was looking at last round, he's actually coming back around now. We'll see if we can get him. I almost went Adonai Mitchell, actually, and we have Michael Pittman, we have Anthony Richardson. We probably don't need to do that. But there's another guy that I was looking at as well that I think could be a decent value, and I'm going to take a gamble here. The gamble that I'm going to take is going to be Rico Dowdle, of the Dallas Cowboys. We know that Ezekiel Elliott is in this backfield. Zeke's old. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. Now, they could just force him the football, but the reality is the depth chart here is bad. I mean, it's like Royce Freeman, Deuce Vaughn, Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, and we know this is a high-powered offense that's probably going to score a lot. Now, Zeke, he profiles as the goal line back better than what Rico Dowdle does, but Rico Dowdle's a better pass-catching back. So in a PPR league, a half-point PPR league, Dowdle could maybe have some extra value there. We know how much they passed the football last year. It's going to be interesting to see, but I'm going to take a shot on Rico Dowdle here. He could potentially be a starter. The reality is the rest of the guys that we're looking at, Kendre Miller, Ty Chandler, Marshawn Lloyd, Zach Charbonnet, we know that these guys are backups until injury happens. Dowdle is the only one that possibly could find starting snaps without injury. So that's why we lean him in that situation. I'll go back to this board here. We'll kind of just go back and let it keep ticking away. See, we got another comment here. Tragic. I really wanted Goff to fall. My bad, dude. Look, like I said, if people snipe me, I guess I snipe people. That's the life of a fantasy football draft. And we better get it out of the way before we get into our home leagues, because I feel like when you get sniped in a home league, it is so much worse. It makes me so angry when I get sniped in a home league, dude. And probably it's because those home leagues are the ones you care the most about. You're playing with your buddies from home, from high school, from college, your family, whatever. I'm just excited, man. I'm getting this itch again. Like, I've obviously had this itch all off season. I mean, you don't make dynasty content, you don't make fantasy content unless you like really love fantasy football. But the reality is, I'm seeing these guys practice. I'm seeing these clips on my Twitter, and I'm like, I cannot wait until the Hall of Fame game next week. It's on Thursday, I think. It's on the first. It's on the first. I think that's Thursday. But it's gonna be the Bears and the Texans. Hopefully, we get to see some Caleb Williams in that game, dude. I'm so excited, man. We'll see what happens, but I'm itching for fantasy football season to be here. Now, let's keep going through some of these news blurbs, I guess. What do we got else on here? Load some more. Oh, Joe Burrow got a new haircut. He looks like Eminem. He looks like what's his name? Cody Rhodes from the WWE. Shout out War for Crimson Mask. What else, guys? Is there anything else that I've missed so far news-wise that you guys want to hear me talk about? You guys want to talk about with me in the chat? What do you got? I'll make the selection, then we can kind of talk more about it. But I think for this next pick here for me, I will go Ty Chandler of the Minnesota Vikings. So we will take him. I think he's going to get some decent run this year. He's not going to be a starter by any means, but if Aaron Jones goes down, he should get some decent run, and he looked decent last year as well. So we'll just kind of keep running or loading up that running back room. We probably only need like one or two more. We'll finish loading out that wide receiver room, and then we have the tight end position just to get one backup, and that's probably it. But what else, guys? I mean, talk to me here. I'm going to get this sip of water real quick, though, so don't mind me if I go muted for a second. Oh, I guess one thing, too, that we could talk about is Quentin Johnston. I just saw him on the screen here, so we'll talk QJ. It's not looking good, man. It's not looking good. Reportedly, he's not playing in 3 wide receiver sets right now. They do have DJ Shark playing as the X, Palmer as the Z, and Ladd in the slot. So it's not looking good for QJ. But then Jim Harbaugh, he came out today. There was a little press conference I was watching. He said that he's one of the better players that they have. I don't know. It sounds like coach speak to me, but it looks like in practice he's not operating with the ones. So I don't know. He may be a blimp on the Dynasty radar that we have and that we play this game of, where every once in a while we get those first-round picks that they show up, they do nothing, and they disappear. That might be overreaction on my part, but that's the damn title of this video is Overreacting to NFL Training Camp. QJ might be a blimp on the radar, man. Jack, what do we got here? Jack says, thoughts on Vegas's fantasy outlook. Great question. So if you guys don't know, I'm actually from Las Vegas, Nevada. Like, I grew up my whole life in Las Vegas. I lived in Las Vegas for like 20 years before I moved and went to college and moved to Utah, and then I moved over here to New York. Now, let me focus on making this pick real quick. We'll go Noah Fant. Noah Fantastic. Hopefully the bye weeks don't cross. Yes, they don't, so we're good. Noah Fant's going to be the pick. I moved to Utah, I moved to New York, so I grew up in Vegas my whole life. Now, growing up, obviously there wasn't a football team in Las Vegas, so as a result, I went and I just started finding players that I liked. I watched Adrian Peterson, and I became a Vikings fan. It's kind of the way that this whole thing went, and I'll move that here because I feel like that's easier to see. But my brother, my younger brother, I play in a ton of fantasy leagues with him. He's a big fantasy football fan as well. He is now a big Raiders fan because he still lives there in Las Vegas. So we had a conversation the other day. We're playing college football. We're doing a dynasty, whatever. Everybody's doing this at this point right now, right? And we're having a conversation about the Raiders and the Vikings. And I told him, I said, I don't think that the Vikings are going to have a good year, but I don't think the Raiders are going to have a good year either. We're kind of having this argument about our two favorite teams. But I guess to answer your question, how do I feel about Vegas's fantasy outlook? I'm a little bit lower on pretty much every fantasy football option in Las Vegas. I think right now, I just recently looked at it, their projected win total is like 6.5. That's where the line is at right now. So they're not projected to win a lot of games. They're not projected to be ahead in a lot of games. Now, Devontae Adams, he's a player I'm a little bit lower on than the community. I think I have him as like my wide receiver 13 right now currently in my ranks, maybe my 14th wide receiver in my ranks. So not as high as some of the other people in the space because I think they have him as a top 10 guy right now. I don't have him there. Brock Bowers, he's a guy that I'm not really drafting at his current ADP in any of my redraft leagues or any of my best ball leagues right now. I just can't get down with the ADP as a rookie tight end. Zamir White, I'm not a big fan of currently at his ADP either, and I think it's not because I don't like Zamir White. It's because the players in that tier, there's guys like DeAndre Swift, there's guys like Najee Harris, there's guys like just a couple of those players that I think I prefer to a Zamir White, and that's because Zamir White doesn't really have any pass-catching ability, and we're talking about them being down potentially in a lot of games this year. I don't think he's going to catch a lot of passes either. So as far as the options there, not a big fan, and I'm nervous now because Dr. Hawk says sorry for this next pick in advance, Andrew. So we'll see what happens. Oh, you son of a gun! He takes Troy Franklin. You know that's my guy. I was looking at him too. We were gonna get a wide receiver, and Johnny took DJ Shark, who I've been looking at as well. But yeah, Jack, that answers your question, I guess, about Vegas. Now, I just talked so negatively about Quentin Johnston on this stream, and now am I going to sit in a position here where I take him? Is that what is going to happen right now? No, I'm not, because Coda saved me from the pain that was going to happen. So thank you so much, Coda. What we're going to end up doing actually is we'll take the blimp of Adam Thielen. Last year, it looked like he still had some juice left. Surprised me as a Vikings fan. I didn't think he had that much juice left, but they force-fed him targets. Maybe he doesn't get as many this year, but he could still get some targets in his offense. So we'll take Adam Thielen as a wide receiver. Now, let's go to this draft board. How many rounds do we got left? We got 3 more rounds, so we can talk for a little bit more, guys. Dylan says, what do you think of Olave this time next year? Do you think he's more valuable or less valuable than he is right now? More valuable or less valuable than he is right now? I'm assuming this is from a Dynasty lens. Is this from a Dynasty lens? Or is this from a redraft lens? I guess we can talk multiple. We'll talk a little bit about... Let's talk from a Dynasty lens first, and then we'll go from there. Sorry, I was trying to focus on doing that as well. Now we'll be done. Save. Get this out of my face. There, it's a little bit darker so we can read the text better. I think from a Dynasty lens, he's probably going to be lower. But I could see a situation where the New Orleans Saints, they end up getting one of the better quarterbacks in this year's class. Maybe they're a team that gets a Shedeur Sanders or a Carson Beck or a Drew Allar. If that is the case, maybe we're talking about them a little bit differently. Now, from a redraft, he's not going to be drafted this highly next year. I can't imagine he will be. But from a Dynasty lens, he's probably going to be worse. Could maybe end up being... It's probably going to be worse no matter what, now that I'm thinking about it. Now for our pick, we're going to take... Let's just take Roman Wilson. Somebody's got to be the wide receiver 2 there. It's got to be Roman, right? If it's not Roman, it's Van Jefferson or one of these other guys, but it's got to be Roman. They have a good history of drafting wide receiver. There just is nobody else, man. I was talking in that video that I'm talking about, 15 sneaky ads. Like, I bring up the name Van Jefferson. I bring up the name Calvin Austin because there is nobody else here. So Roman Wilson, we'll take that shot. That leaves us with 2 more picks. We'll go probably a running back, wide receiver, and call it a day. I know I'm showing my cards here, but there we are. So let's look back at some of these. Is there anything else that I missed from training camp? I guess one thing that's just confirmation bias at this point, we'll talk a little bit about Joe Mixon. I've been saying this offseason that Joe Mixon is a favorite of mine at his ADP. I thought he was a value. He was getting faded a little bit. I think the ADP is starting to creep back up now. So people are starting to get back in on Joe Mixon. But Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator for the Texans, he was gushing about Joe Mixon earlier this week. He's talking about how he's an absolute workhorse in every regard. They're going to feed him a ton of football, a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, Joe Mixon looks like he's going to get a huge workload on one of the best offenses in football. And the guys behind him are They just signed Cam Akers. Maybe he has something, 2 torn Achilles. That makes me a little bit scared. Obviously, it should make you scared. Dameon Pierce didn't look great last year in this scheme. And then Jawar Jordan, a dart throw. Jawar Jordan actually kind of reminds me of Tevin Coleman. I said that in my group chat today. I was watching some of the highlights of Jawar Jordan just for video purposes. I was researching the backfield for the Texans. But for the most part, Joe Mixon's going to get a massive workload, I think, this year. And definitely somebody that you should be watching. Here's another one that we'll talk about too. And I realize that you guys haven't even been seeing the draft board. I apologize. And I realize that Dylan's comment has been up here this whole time. I apologize for that as well. Like I said, new software, technical difficulties. We'll get used to it over time. But that's the way it'll be. With that in mind, would you consider selling high on Olave now? I mean, potentially. If you look in Dynasty right now, like what he's being valued as, if you can get into the Puka Nacua, the Drake London, like if you can do that, I'm probably doing that at this point for Chris Olave. What else do we got here? Oh, I was going to talk about something that actually we're going to be on the board here, and then I'll talk about one more little news blurb because I feel like this is interesting. We got our wide receiver. How many rounds? 2 rounds. So we'll take one more wide receiver, one more running back. CEH comes off the board, so we'll take... I've been taking a ton of Khalil Herbert, but we actually have DeAndre Swift, so we'll probably not do that. I'm actually going to skip out on the running back for now. We'll go 14. We'll go Zay Jones for the Arizona Cardinals offense. If he can get that offense or the opposite role from Marvin Harrison Jr. and get some of those extra snaps, I know Michael Wilson's probably going to get that, but if Zay Jones gets a little bit, then he should still have some value here. So we'll take him, maybe get a couple touchdowns out of him on the weeks. I was thinking of maybe going like a Luke McCaffrey, but we have a couple week 14 buys. I don't want to cross that over too much. I was thinking of Jalen McMillan, but I just don't know how good his role is going to be this year. Javon Baker, I don't trust the offense or that much this year. Tolbert was interesting. OBJ, nah. And then we're kind of getting in punt territory. So Zay Jones, he was a guy that I ended up going with. Greg Dortch was in consideration too. If you guys know, I kind of talked about Greg Dortch on our Let's Talk Dynasty episode this week. But we'll look at the running backs. I have a guy in mind. Just don't have enough value or don't have enough shares of him at this point or exposure to him, I guess, in Underdog. So we'll talk about him when he comes up. But let's talk about currently this last piece of news because Rashad Bateman is getting so much hype out of Baltimore right now. It's kind of interesting to see because he's a guy that I really liked when he was coming out. Obviously, we all liked him. He kind of was a disappointment. He's been a disappointment. He's been a bust up to this point. He hasn't done anything, but a lot of that has been because he's dealt with a lot of injury. Now, they're saying he's 100% healthy this year. John Harbaugh's talking about he's going to be expected to be one of the top receivers in the league for us. And he didn't even say one of the top receivers on our team. He said he's expecting him to be one of the top receivers in the league. Now, this sounds like coach speak, but they also gave him a contract extension this year. They're saying he's showing tremendous growth. The wide receivers there, Devontae Walker, Zay Flowers. I don't know. Should we be buying into the Rashad Bateman hype, or is it fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, and now it's shame on me for fooling me the 4th time? Probably that, but I don't know. Rashad Bateman, he's getting a lot of hype as well, so we'll see. What do we have here? Johan says, had to take a 30-minute phone call. Did you talk AD yet? No, we didn't talk too much Adonai Mitchell. I don't think we actually have talked much Adonai Mitchell at all. So here's the player that I wanted to talk about, actually. I'm going to draft Rasheen Ali, and I think Ali just is not getting enough hype right now. He seems like there's nothing going on. But Keaton Mitchell, he was recently put on the PUP. There's really nobody here besides Justice Hill in this backfield. Somebody has to be the backup for Derrick Henry to start the year. Somebody has to do it. And if I'm going to swing for the fences on a backup, a guy that could potentially get some value, give me Rasheen Ali on a run-heavy offense on a team that's going to score a lot of touchdowns with a running back that's 30-plus years old, and the other backups behind him are injured or mid. So Rasheen Ali, he's a last-round dart throw that I'm definitely comfortable throwing. I haven't thrown enough of them up to this point, so probably my next couple of underdog drafts, I'll take a couple of Rasheen Ali's to finish those drafts off. So that's what we did in this one. Now I'll go to the board. We're about to be done. This is the part of the show where if you guys drafted with me today, if you were in this draft, drop your team name or your underdog name, and I will review your roster and just talk about what I like, what I dislike on the rosters as we get here. So go ahead and throw those in the chat if you do have them in this draft with us. We'll go to the full draft, though. Let's look at this roster of mine. First and foremost, actually, we don't have to go to the full draft. We can go back to drafts and then go to completed, and we'll go to this one. We can look at everybody from right here. So this is the team. We ended up going with a 2 quarterback, 6 running back, 8 wide receiver, 2 tight end type of build. Drafting from the 7 slot, we got Anthony Richardson and Jared Goff at the quarterback position. Running backs, we got Bijan in the first round, and then we really didn't take another running back until pick 90. And there we kind of sprinkled in quite a few guys. We got DeAndre Swift, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Ty Chandler, Rasheen Ali. Sounds like it could be scary if Bijan Robinson gets hurt. But if not, we have enough ammunition back there to plug and play that RB2 from week to week. Now, wide receiver, we go Ayuk, Pittman, Dell, Rice, Dobbs, Thielen, Wilson, and Zay Jones. Thielen, Wilson, Zay Jones, they're kind of just dart throws at the end of the draft. Wish I could have got some Troy Franklin. Obviously, you guys know my brand up to this point, so got sniped on that by Dr. Hawk. And then at the tight end, we get George Kittle and Noah Fant. So actually, this team feels pretty solid. What do you guys think about this roster? You think this roster is decent or what? 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10? How we feeling? Or you guys giving me a 1 out of 10? Let's see who else we got in here, too. Walker says Walker 0-0. So let's go look at that team. Walker 0-0. Okay, so we got a 3 quarterback, 5 running back, 8 wide receiver, 2 tight end. Nothing crazy. Kind of the same build as us, but instead of 6 running backs, you go with the extra QB. You got Tua, Levis, and Bryce. So I like Tua, Levis, and Bryce. That feels scary, but at the same time, that's why you go with the 3 QBs, so I get it. ETN, Joe Mixon, James Conner, my guy. My guy. These are like 3 of my favorite picks currently at ADP. I'm higher than all of these guys, or I'm higher on all of these guys than consensus is right now, so love the running backs. Now, Anthony says my roster is a 7.125 out of 10. I'll take it, I guess. Wide receivers here. We got the Ohio State Buckeye, Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison. You get DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Tolbert. So double Washington there. Triple Washington. Holy hell. I wish you could have got Jaden Daniels on this team, because if you got Jaden Daniels, that would have been a good little triple stack. The wide receivers, I think outside of the top 3 are iffy. I guess McLaurin needs a little bit more credit, but not bad. And then Cole Kmet, Evan Ingram, not bad. But look at the bye weeks for the wide receivers. 14, 14, 14, 14. And then we got a couple 7s. Oh, man. Let's just hope Washington doesn't have a bad week, because then you might be without some wide receivers. If Washington has a bad week on week 7, GG's, buddy. That's it. But not a bad roster. I actually really like the running backs on this roster. Let's go to... Who's next here? JP Cougar. So we got Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Ooh, we got the Jedi and the Padawan, right? That's what you would say. Don't slander me, Star Wars folks. I shouldn't have even went there if I wasn't confident. My bad. Let's move the comment over to the side of the screen. We'll move it over to here. My bad, folks. If you like Star Wars, my bad. I wasn't confident. I went there with like half confidence, bro. Kyron Williams, Jalen Warren, Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford, Ray Davis, Keaton Mitchell. Okay, I like Kyron. The depth behind Kyron, though, Warren, Edwards, Jerome, this feels scary. I'm not going to lie. I don't love the running back room. I love Kyron Williams, but I don't love the running back room behind him. I like Jerome Ford, but I don't know, man. That feels very, very risky in this running back room. Wide receivers, though, CeeDee Lamb, Adams, Higgins, Godwin, Deontay, Mike Will, Darnell Mooney. That's solid. You got a solid wide receiver room. Couple 12s, couple 11s on the buys. Probably not going to matter for the most part. Week 12 might get a little dicey, especially because actually you should be fine there. Actually, week 12 is going to be dicey for you because Kincaid is 12 as well. But then you got Kincaid, Chig, and Jelani. I don't actually think you needed to get Jelani. I would have actually rather, if you didn't take Jelani and you just took another shot at the another running back, that's probably what I would have done. So Dragna says, I think the Star Wars metaphor holds up. So, okay, I might be in the clear. I might be in the clear. I appreciate you checking that for me. Let's see what else we got here. Johnny, I know Johnny was in the draft. Let's see what Johnny got. Johnny ends up getting Mahomes, Watson, Wilson. Solid. You probably didn't even need Wilson, to be honest, unless you were chasing a stack, which doesn't look like you were. Henry, Mostert, Zamir, Chubb, Pierce. Again, it feels a little bit risky with the running backs there. It feels a little bit light on depth, but that might be okay. I probably would have rather had another running back than Russell Wilson. Wide receivers, we got Hill, Worthy, BTJ, Jameson Williams, Dontavion Wicks, DJ Shark, Tyler Boyd, and then you had Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Cade Otton. Not bad, man. I probably don't feel like you need Otton or Wilson at this point. Maybe they can plug in on some flex weeks, but overall, decent roster. Might be a little bit young. You might be a dynasty guy playing best ball in this draft specifically, which ain't a bad thing, to be honest. But should be a decent roster. I mean, at the end of the day, too, we'll see. We're all playing in this league together now, so we're playing for winning bragging rights, I guess. Now, let's see what else we have. We had Andrew Rickus or Rikus. He says that is his name, so that's very easy, very simple. Andrew has Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr. 2 bye weeks on the 12s. That's not bad, though. You probably don't even need Derek Carr on this roster again. Pacheco, White, Spears, Roshan. Definitely would have wanted another running back. Probably one more. Take the Carr pick out. Take a running back right there. A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen, JSN, Rashid Shaheed, Leggett, Burton, Marvin Mims. Love the wide receiver room. Wide receiver room's awesome. Really good wide receiver room. And Njoku, Conklin, Likely. I like that as well. Only thing I would say, take Carr out. Throw in another running back. You could even take out one of these guys, either Leggett, Burton, or Mims, and throw another running back in because you're so strong at the top of that wide receiver room. Probably would build a little bit more of a well-rounded roster. So there we go. We got a few more. Oh, and it looks like Andrew says, I was drafting at work. I didn't realize I was light at running back until too late. So it's all good, man. Getting in those extra hours at work, I actually appreciate that. So let's see what else we got. We got a couple more, actually. We got Ryan Coda. He says dint. I don't know. I don't know what team you are, bro. There's no dent on here. Coda? I guess Coda would be you, right? That makes sense. My bad. I couldn't put the puzzle together. And he says, my team mid, what you think of mine? We're about to find out right now, Coda. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Bo Nix. Don't mind it. Cook, Najee, Zach Moss, Charbonnet, CEH. Don't mind that either, actually. Jefferson, Nico, Smith, Watson. Okay, Coda. I'm not gonna lie. It might be one of the better ones we've looked at. This is probably one of the better teams we've looked at. You could have maybe. I keep saying it, and I feel like every team that I review, I'm like, yeah, you could have gotten one more running back. But this is a pretty damn good roster. This is a solid one. So I like this one, man. Now, there's a few more. 2 more, and then we'll get on out of here. unless you guys have any questions. This will be last call. Throw your questions in the chat. If you have any questions, I'll answer them before we get off of the stream. But for now, we'll review these last two teams. We got Anthony Mack, legend. Anthony, I just want to shout out Anthony. Anthony's been here from like day one, bro. When we were at like 100 subscribers, I feel like Anthony was here. He was in the Discord. If you're not in the Discord, go get in the Discord. It's free to join. Anthony's an OG, and I appreciate the hell out of you, Anthony. So here we are. Oh, 4 quarterbacks. You know what I'm going to say here. You don't need Baker. You don't need McCarthy if you have Lamar and Kyler. We're going to end at that. Brees Hall, Brooks, Javonte, Corum, Tracy. I like it, but take some of those running backs and take some of those quarterbacks and throw them into the running back room, especially because Brooks is probably going to not play a lot early on. You got guys like Corum and Tracy who are backups and dart throws. London, Neighbors, Reed, DeMario, Bateman, Dortch, Odell. I actually like it. London, Neighbors, Reed, I like it. Bateman, we talked about him today. And then DeMario Douglas, good sleeper. Dortch, good dart throw at the end. Brock Bowers, Pat Freiermuth. I love Pat Freiermuth this year at his ADP. And that's it. So good roster. And Dan Newcomer says, Drunk Driver X. I picked number 1. You better not, Dan. You better not be a drunk driver, bro. We don't need you on your Jordan Addison and some of these other guys' stuff. So let's not do that. But Caleb Williams, Matthew Stafford, Christian McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, Austin Eckler, Jaleel McLaughlin, Antonio Gibson, Isaac Garendo, Evans, Cup, Brown, Rome, Palmer, Robinson, Slayton, Moore, McBride, Schultz. Very solid, very well-rounded roster. You got the 2, 2, 6, 8. Solid all around. I like it. And here we go. We got the last couple of questions. So let's just go back here, and we'll throw some of these questions up on the screen, talk about them, and then we'll get on out of here. So the first question that I want to bring up, sorry, we're going to move that there, is Brian has a question. He says, what do you think of Purdy? Brock Purdy is obviously a player that I think is being drafted appropriately. I mean, you look at where he's being drafted right now. I think he's being drafted as like the QB 10 to 12-ish range. Last year, that's about where he finished. Still has Ayuk. We assume he's going to have Ayuk. Still has Debo, Kittle. Offense isn't going to look like it's that much worse this year. Invest in good quarterbacks on good offenses. Brock Purdy's going to be fine. I wish there was a little bit more rushing upside in the 4-point passing touchdown leagues, but if you're in a 6-point passing touchdown league, Brock Purdy is exactly what you want out of a QB2 with some QB1 upside. So I like Brock Purdy. I don't think he's much different than a guy like Jared Goff. So they're both kind of the same to me. Those QB2s, high-end QB2s with QB1 upside on any given week. Johan, he's been asking this all day, so I got to find out if we got any Adonai Mitchell news, because I haven't seen any Adonai Mitchell news, but let's check it out, because we got to figure this out for you. Adonai Mitchell, what do we got, man? I'm not seeing anything out of the first couple days. Doesn't seem like we have much out of the first couple days. We'll see as it develops, but he was killing it in rookie camp and mini camp, so we don't have anything right now. If I'm missing something and you know something is there that I'm not discussing, bring it up, Johan. But from what I've looked at, what I've found, we don't have much new news about Adonai Mitchell right now. So sorry we couldn't find anything good for you. Ryan says, biggest surprise team this year, like the Texans last year. That's a good question. Who is going to be the biggest surprise team? Like the Texans, a team that was picking low in the NFL draft that could make the playoffs. That's kind of the route that I'm going to go here. The Arizona Cardinals, maybe. The Cardinals maybe could be a team that was picking low and could make the playoffs. Healthy Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, maybe. Who else? Atlanta was picking low in the draft. They could make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to be as surprising. I think the Cardinals would be my pick, man. I think they're going to be a good football team. Dan says, appreciate the review. Love your channel. I appreciate you, Dan, and I love you, man. I appreciate you watching the content. Johan says, tragic. Need him to win versus Pierce. He will. He will. So with that being said, guys, that is going to be it for today's stream. If you participated, I appreciate you. If you guys want to participate in future streams in the future, the best way to do that is, 1, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. And 2, make sure you are in our Discord. We do have a free Discord. It is linked in the description. And in there is where I drop the links to do these drafts with me. We're doing them every Wednesday. And starting in August, we will be doing them every weekend as well. I think it's going to be Saturday or Sunday. Can't remember which day exactly. I think it's Saturday. So should be Wednesdays and Saturdays that we do this. Just a bunch of the guys getting on here, drafting some fantasy football teams, and the gals, bunch of the guys and the gals getting on here, drafting some fantasy football teams, talking some football as the preseason approaches, training camp develops, all that good stuff. We'll be doing this once, twice every week. So appreciate you guys. And last but not least, before you go out of here, make sure you hit that like button. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. If you want to actually support us in a financial way that doesn't actually cost you anything, you can click the link that is pinned in the top of the comments or in the description as well. It's an Underdog link. Sign up for Underdog Fantasy, draft some teams like we did today, and if you deposit $10 to play with, we get a kickback on that. So that's a way you can help support this channel as well. So with that being said, do I have anything else for you guys? I guess one more thing. I'm going to say this probably for the rest of the week. If you guys don't know, we are now officially on Apple and Spotify, so those links are going to be in the description as well. So if you want to listen to us on Apple or Spotify, they will be linked in the in the description down below. And if you do listen on those platforms, do me a favor, hit that 5-star review for us, and just leave a comment in that review section telling us why you listen to the show or what you like about the show. And that would do me a massive, massive favor. So I would appreciate you guys doing that. But with all that out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today. So I will see you guys on our next video. But until then, peace out. You know the deal.